Hi, this is Eric Bond, the founder of Beat the GMAT. I wanted to let you know that today's session is brought to you by ClearAdmit and Beat the GMAT. If you like what you see today, please check out the new MBA admissions course we built together called Navigating the MBA Admissions Process. This is a complete course on how to get into business school from start to finish. It's a course that I wish that I had when I applied, and I think that you're going to love it. You can learn more by going to udemy.com/business-school. Thanks.
Welcome to the Write Like an Expert series. In today's discussion, we're going to break down Harvard Business School's essay topics. And I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my background before we dive right into the essay questions and try to demystify them. So my name is Graham Richmond. I am the co-founder of ClearAdmit, which is an MBA admissions consultancy. We work with candidates to help them put their best foot forward in the MBA admissions process. And I've been working with ClearAdmit for 10 years now. And prior to that was an admissions officer at the Wharton School, where I also earned my MBA. So I have a lot of experience in helping people kind of understand the MBA admissions process and, again, trying to sort of demystify it. So today we're going to talk about Harvard. Harvard's essays are actually, someone who sees the essay topics of really every school every year, year in and year out, and sees kind of the changes in them. I will say that Harvard's essays are absolutely fantastic in that they give the candidate a lot of room to stretch out and sort of share aspects of their background that are often harder to kind of fit into other schools' applications. So while many of you are probably nervous about HBS and applying there and the admissions odds, I will say that the admissions team at HBS is giving you lots of room to kind of share everything about your background that could make you kind of a special candidate for their program. So it's by no fault of the essays if you don't get in. They have great essay questions. As you can see here, we've got 4 questions. They vary. Some of them are 400-word essays, some of them are 600-word, but they're 4 questions, and they're also, it's almost sort of poetic how simple they are, right? So you've got the first question, tell us about 3 of your accomplishments, and then 3 setbacks, onto a question about why you want the degree, and then finally the kind of what I would call the wild card or the joker question, which is completely up to you in terms of how you want to, what you want to talk about. So let's dive into the first question. I think I should preface our discussion of this first question by saying that as long as I've been in MBA admissions, which goes back, gosh, I've been in this space for 15 plus years in terms of, when I was an applicant, going all the way back. And this question has always been part of the Harvard application. And that says a lot, this first question. I really think that the fact that it's never been eliminated from contention, and they do change their essay questions year to year, but the fact that this one has always remained constant should signal its importance. I've also heard rumors that the committee at HBS feel as though when they pick up a file and read this essay that they can learn a lot about the candidate in a very short period of time. So don't underestimate, this is your kind of opener essay, and it gives you a chance to kind of put your best foot forward. First I wanted to talk about kind of a logistical problem that many candidates face with this essay. So regardless of what the 3 accomplishments are that you choose to discuss, many people worry that they need to somehow weave them together, so that they need to have a lot of prose or what I would call kind of connective tissue that links one story to the next. And the issue there is that can sometimes be challenging. I mean, how do you link your story about winning a Grammy for a jazz art record that you produced with your story about getting straight A's in college or something, right? So how do you link those 2 things? And the answer is that you don't need to. And in fact, if you were to spend a lot of words trying to connect your various accomplishments, you'd kind of be wasting valuable space that you could be using to further flesh out the actual accomplishments you're talking about. So rule number 1 with this essay is that you can provide 3 standalone vignettes or kind of anecdotes. They can literally just be 1 paragraph each. Some people title them, so they really don't need to be a single it doesn't need to be a single kind of flowing essay where all 3 are kind of linked together or discussed at the same time or something. So keep them separate, keep them simple. The second thing to keep in mind is that this is a major opportunity for you to kind of establish your candidacy and lay out the kind of key aspects of your candidacy to the admissions officer who's picking up your file. And so don't underestimate that. Again, this essay has been a part of their application for many years, and they like it. Okay, so as to how you go about selecting stories, I think that one thing I would keep in mind is that HBS is impact oriented. Okay. In fact, the admissions director at HBS once said to me that they're really focused on, kind of not how long you've been somewhere or how long you've been doing something, but the impact that you've had. What have you done with the time that you've had in this organization or as a part of a community? So they really want to know that you're kind of leaving your mark on the institutions, organizations, communities that you're a part of. So focus on impact where possible. I also think that these accomplishment stories are a great opportunity to demonstrate personal growth. So, obviously, when you accomplish something, you often learn something in the process about yourself. And so keep that in mind as well as you're kind of mining your past for stories. The other thing that I think is really critical with this essay and that many candidates fail to sort of take into account is balance. So when you're selecting stories, if you're working in private equity, probably not a good idea to have 3 deal stories here. Yes, they may be in your mind 3 big accomplishments in your life, but you don't want to put your reader to sleep, and you've got to keep in mind that HBS is looking for what I would call kind of a Renaissance leader, someone who's really well-rounded. And what does it say about you if all 3 of your stories come from your current employer and are really the same story with different numbers? Okay, so keep that in mind. I personally think that the most compelling HBS accomplishments essays that I have read take stories from really all kind of different areas of the candidate's background. There could be a story about your academics, or a story about something you've done in the workplace, or something you've done in your community. I mean, really, everything is open here. There's no ground rule in terms of what's valid. So just think through your past and try to come up with 3 compelling accomplishment stories that are different, that show growth, that show impact, etc. So the last thing I would say about this one is, don't reach too far back into the past. Now, there are exceptions to this, but as a rule, I would say if your accomplishments are coming from high school or middle school, you're probably not assembling a strong application. And I think the best way to sort of characterize that is a "what have you done for me lately" kind of attitude that sometimes the HBS admissions committee might have, which is, if all of your stories are old, they may kind of ask that question, well, what has this person done recently that's an accomplishment? So again, this is a great essay. It allows you to stretch out, showcase 3 very different stories from your background, and demonstrate growth, impact, and that you are, in fact, HBS material. So let's look at the second essay. And the interesting thing about this essay is that HBS has often asked about a mistake or a failure or even a setback, but they traditionally, until this year, had only asked for 1 instance. So you would have kind of 400 words to talk about 1 big mistake or failure or setback that you'd been involved with. So this year, they've kind of upped the ante, and they're saying we want 3 setbacks. And again, 600 words for this one, so it's very similar in structure to the first essay. So I really think that, once again, you can describe your setbacks in kind of standalone sections, exactly as you would your accomplishments. Now, the reason I love this question is that you meet many MBA applicants out there, and actually a lot that are looking at HBS, who, when you ask them, tell me about a failure or a setback or something that you faced of that nature, they say, oh, I haven't had any real setbacks or failures. I don't make mistakes. I'm going to HBS. So you have to really do some reflection here, and I think that the admissions board at HBS views it as a sign of maturity if you can reflect, identify some kind of setbacks that you faced and challenges and how you've responded to them, and that it really is a sign of maturity to show that you've learned something from a setback, and that it's okay to have setbacks. In fact, most great leaders have dealt with setbacks and challenges. So use this essay as an opportunity to kind of reflect your, reflect on your background and showcase your resourcefulness, showcase your resilience, the fact that you kind of get up again and keep going despite setbacks. The other thing I think that is really important to point out here is that we probably need to define what a setback is. So the great thing about it is that a setback is a little bit different than a mistake or a personal failure, in that if you make a mistake, you're the one making the mistake. Whereas a setback could be something that is external. right? So it could be that you're working on a new product launch for a company, and the venture capital fund that had been financing it pulls the plug and says, no more money, this product has to be canceled, we're not moving ahead. That's a setback, right? Here you've been invested in trying to get this product off the ground, and somebody else pulls the plug. But it's not necessarily your fault. And so keep that in mind, that there's sort of a broad range here. Now, this is not to say that you can't use a failure or a personal mistake, because those can be setbacks. But I just want to make sure that everyone understands that there's a broad scope here, okay? Again, I think that some of the key qualities you want to demonstrate in the stories you share here are maturity, insight, reflection. Show the committee that you can look critically at your past and sort of understand where the going has gotten tough and how you've gotten going in that situation. So focus on the steps that you took to overcome the setback, and try to work in some information about the growth that you were able to have as a result of a setback, or lessons learned. So don't spend too much time just sort of moaning about what happened. Make sure that there's kind of a post a post mistake or post setback element here, because they do want to understand how this has impacted you going forward. And the last thing I'll say about this essay is, again, there's a great opportunity here to provide another sort of snapshot of your candidacy and more balance. So just as you wouldn't write 3 stories, 3 accomplishments that relate to your work experience, you probably wouldn't want to use 3 setbacks that are all work related. I mean, again, use all of what's available to you in terms of personal activities, academics, professional experience, etc. So balance is great. And one thing that's great as we move on to the 3rd essay to consider is that by the time the reader gets to your 3rd essay and learns sort of why you want an MBA and perhaps where you're going in the world next, they will have had 6 anecdotes or 6 vignettes, short stories about you. And that's really powerful. So I really encourage candidates to think of this as sort of you have 6 bullets in those first 2 essays where you can showcase 6 different areas of your candidacy and really kind of underline. Maybe you've had 2 different employers, so clearly among the 6 stories there's going to be 1 from each of those. Maybe you've got some great activities you want to work in, something about your academic experience. So there's a lot of room across those first 2 essays to tell the admissions reader a great deal about yourself. Okay, so moving on to essay 3. This is new for this year. HBS for many years had an essay that was more career vision oriented. So they would ask you, what is your career vision and why is this important to you? Or just something as simple as describe your career vision. And this year they've taken a different tack, which is, why do you want an MBA? And I think that obviously these 2 subjects are often related. Because for most candidates, the MBA should be a means to an end. I mean, you're getting this degree in order to prepare yourself for something in the future. You don't go to business school and then retire. So, keep in mind that they are related. Your career vision or your career plans would be related to why you want the MBA, but they are not the same question. So don't think that you can take another school's essay about your career goals and just drop it right in here, okay? One thing that I want to emphasize as you think about why you want an MBA are these kind of 3 words: knowledge, people, and perspective. I think that when it comes to knowledge, obviously you're going to business school, it's an academic degree. And I think sometimes people forget that, but you are going to school, okay? So you're going to learn something. Maybe you really want to learn about operations or finance or marketing, brand management, whatever it is. There are things that you want to learn. And they probably relate to your career plans, but nonetheless, you want the MBA to learn those things. So any great response to this question would probably include some discussion of the academic experience that you would get in business school. As far as people are concerned, I think that any great essay, any great response to this question would include some discussion of who you're going to be studying with, what kind of a community you're going to be a part of in the MBA program. And the reason that I say that is that if your goal is just to learn about marketing, one could argue that you might pick up some books about marketing and read those books and learn about marketing. But if your goal is to learn about marketing and then come into class after reading a chapter on marketing and discuss that topic with a group of 100 individuals from across the globe who've all had different marketing experiences, then you want to go to business school, right? Because you can't replicate that at home in your living room reading a book. Okay, so people is pretty important, I think, in answering the why MBA question. And then the last one is perspectives, and I think that I vacillate here whether it should be perspective or perspectives, because on some level you are going to gain perspective into your past experiences by going to business school, right? So you could argue to the admissions committee that by going to business school and studying marketing or studying finance, I'm going to be able to look back on decisions that my previous employers have made in these domains and gain perspective on them, a new perspective that I didn't have when I was just out in the workforce. Now, the reason that I also mentioned kind of perspectives, plural here, is that, again, it comes back to the people. Everyone in your classroom will have different perspectives that they can offer. And so you're getting kind of this viewpoint issue, and you're able to put past experiences into perspective. So keep those three sort of words in mind as you approach this essay. Again, coming back to what I said earlier, I do think that the reasons for your, wanting the MBA will be linked to your career plan. And so a good response to this essay probably will sketch out your professional objectives. What do you want to do? I don't think you need to get into a very detailed plan, meaning I don't think you need to say, when in between the first and second year, I'm going to intern at company X, then I'm going to take a job at company Y, when I graduate, and, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think that you want to explain your kind of vision or broad goals. What sort of impact do you want to have? So focus on the longer term. If you want to start a company, whatever it may be, that's what you're going to have to work in here. The other thing I think is that you need to connect the dots, right? So it's one thing to say, oh, I really want to learn about marketing or finance, and by the way, my goals are X, Y, and Z, but you may need to connect the two. So you might need to explain why studying marketing or operations would actually assist you as you move along your career path. So keep that in mind. The last thing I would say, and this is not required, but it's sort of a nice to have kind of thing, and that is, as you're talking about all of this, they have asked you, why do you want an MBA? But the reality is you're applying to Harvard Business School, and that's not just any MBA. And so I think that as you respond to the kind of why MBA question, I think you could safely sort of discuss why Harvard's MBA. Okay, so your discussion about the perspectives you get in the classroom or the knowledge that you would gain can be tailored to HBS, meaning it's fine to say that you would have perspectives of the 90 plus people in your section at HBS, which wouldn't be the case necessarily at another program that has a different way of dividing up the class. Similarly, if you want to study marketing, perhaps you would name a specific course or cite a professor at HBS that's doing work in that area that is particularly relevant to your career plan. So I think to the extent that you can, peppering in some HBS details into this essay can be effective. Now, obviously, you only have 400 words, and that is challenging. Most programs that ask for a kind of career goal statement often give you a little bit more room, or ask you for, kind of why you want the degree. There's often more room in this type of essay. So be cognizant of the word count, and just be careful that you can sort of work all these elements into it. So there's one more essay that HBS has this year, and this one's driving applicants up the wall a little bit, because it's so ambiguous, right? They're just saying, answer a question that you wish we'd asked. And for many candidates, it's daunting. At Clear Admit, we've already had a number of candidates come and say, can I use, Wharton's essay number 3 as my answer to this question? And, what I would say about this is, the short answer is, the idea is not to kind of slot in some other school's essay. You'd sort of be foolish if you didn't think that the admissions board at HBS knows what questions their peers are asking and might recognize that. So I don't think that your kind of shortcut here is to just say, well, I'll just grab an essay from another school. I really think that you want to reflect on what's missing from your profile after you've written the first 3 essays. So I really think that first of all, you should never think about what would go into this question until you have already mapped out the 6 anecdotes you're going to share across the accomplishments and setbacks, as well as the strategy you're taking with regards to why you want an MBA in that essay. So for this question, first things first, figure out what the other essays are going to discuss, okay? Then step back and reflect strategically on what's missing from your file. What have you not yet had a chance to discuss? And that's where you can begin to do some brainstorming. Again, this is a great opportunity that they've offered you to kind of highlight something that is not featured prominently elsewhere. And to be frank, I think it's a great opportunity. A lot of people struggle when they're dealing with other applications for different programs where they're just not given much flexibility. So Harvard's actually giving you a great chance to kind of talk about whatever you want and to share whatever you'd like with them. So I think, one thing to keep in mind as you take inventory of your experiences and figure out what haven't you shared yet, is that this essay is a pretty great place to share something maybe unusual that wouldn't fit into a standard MBA application essay. So maybe it's a hobby or an experience you had. Perhaps you spent 6 months living in Indonesia when you were 16, or perhaps you were a professional skateboarder in high school but turned down the money and the Red Bull sponsorship to go off to college. Okay, so there could be all kinds of things in your background that for you may have been sort of dead ends, that just short experiences, but that may end up being really interesting and help you to stand out. I think of candidates in the past that I've worked with or spoken with who did things like drive an ice cream truck in the summers during college, or take a ferry out from one island to another and be the kind of captain of that ferry for a summer job. So there's all kinds of interesting things that people have done that may fit nicely into this essay. I also think that there could be an aspect of your personal background that would allow the committee to see a direct application to the HBS community, right? So maybe you're really passionate about something, and maybe it's animal rights, or something as simple as that. Maybe you've been a real big advocate for the SPCA and have been working with kind of dog rescue or whatever it might be for many, many years. And just for the HBS committee to read an essay about that and understand immediately that you're going to be rallying your classmates and getting them involved with that kind of initiative in the Boston or Cambridge area, that could be valuable. Okay, so this is a great place to showcase something that could highlight your potential for contribution to HBS and their community. And the last thing I would say is, if you're reapplying to HBS, this might be a good place to actually outline for the committee specifically what you've done to kind of improve. Now, I would only say that you would use it for that if you don't, if you've already kind of been very effective with the first 3 essays in terms of conveying the breadth of your candidacy. And if you have done that and you're reapplying, then this is obviously a great chance to kind of just underline for them your sort of dedication to getting the degree, your interest in specific aspects of the program, and what you've done over the past year to kind of enrich yourself and have a greater set of experiences to share. So that's the last essay. I think that, again, it's daunting, but as long as you approach it at the end, which is why it's the last essay, you should be okay. So resist that temptation to kind of start with it and slot in another essay from a school that you've already applied to, and you should be fine. So the last thing I wanted to just mention is that ClearAdmit does a lot of different things. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with our one-on-one admissions consulting services, where we guide candidates on things just as I've done today with you in terms of talking about essay topics and getting down to what stories might be best tailored for your application. But we also have a great video course that you can watch that will take you through the entire admissions process and teach you how to write great essays, how to select and coach your recommenders. Though actually there's a session on how to understand what admissions officers are thinking and how they sort of behave in the admissions process from kind of that side of the table. And so I encourage you to check that out as well. There's a link here on screen that you can see. The other thing we do is we publish a whole range of guides, so ebooks that you can download about different schools and about crafting your resume, etc. So there's a lot of resources there. And then finally, we have a pretty vibrant MBA admissions community on our website, where you can learn more about what schools are up to, who's hired a great professor, who's published new essay topics, and just keep abreast of everything that's kind of happening in the MBA admissions world. So good luck as you kind of tackle your HBS essays, and just remember to write like an expert, and hopefully you'll find success.
If you liked today's Write Like an Expert session, please be sure to visit udemy.com/business-school and check out our course, Navigating the MBA Admissions Process. Take a look at the free preview at the top of this page. This is a complete MBA admissions course featuring former admissions officers just like the speaker you saw in today's session. Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you again.